live. Welcome to Broadcast Team Alpha. We have a special guest this evening. We have Billy Carson with us. And just want to introduce our co-hosts. We have Aage Nost and we have Nori Love. Nori, are you there?
I am here.
Okay.
Welcome, everybody, to Broadcast Team Alpha, where we bring you cutting-edge conversations while exploring the quantum possibilities. And we are so going into the quantum possibilities tonight with our amazing guests. But before we do, we'd like to ask you to connect with us. You can connect with us on broadcastteamalpha.com or our YouTube channel. And please subscribe to our YouTube channel. And don't forget to click the little bell for the notifications. This way you will not miss any time that we go live. And you may notice that we also have another function. It's called a super chat. And that's just another way to support us. And if you would like to support us that way, or just by being here, or liking, subscribing, and sharing, we are ever so grateful. So without any further unnecessary words, Aage, will you please tell us about our amazing guest tonight?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. We're so delighted to have Billy Carson here. He's a phenomenal researcher and a gentleman. He's a world also very well known around the world as a whistleblower. On the forefront of the disclosure movement, he's a world traveler, a researcher of ancient knowledge and sites. He's an author, a lecturer, a speaker at just about every one of the conferences that I see out there. And he's also on the radio and TV speaking circuit, and he is all over the internet. And tonight he is with us. So welcome to the show, Billy.
Welcome.
Thank you. That's so gracious of you. I really appreciate it. Thank you for having me back on the show.
Sounds wonderful.
Absolutely. Welcome, Billy.
An honor.
You know, there's so much to talk about. And of course, today also is the 70th anniversary of the moon landing. And I just itching to ask you, when do you think we went there? Did we go there in the mid-1950s or the early 60s in the Hanebü 2 and 3 that we stole from the Germans? Or did we go there in 1969? Or what is your take on how this all happened? Maybe we can talk about that too.
Yeah, it's a real interesting topic, and I'm really glad that we're talking about this topic, because I hope that through this video today, this blog, this vlog, that we get a chance to educate some people on what potentially could have happened, think about from before, that have kind of eluded them, people who kind of thinking that maybe the whole thing was fake. So what I like to tell people is that, yes, we went to the moon, but also, yes, we lied about it. And I think it's important for people to understand the duality in that statement. I really do believe that at the beginning of Project Paperclip, where we obviously, quote unquote, defeated Nazi Germany, which I think most likely was some type of agreement, and when we swept away 1,600 of their top minds, which included hundreds of scientists, brought them over to the United States right before the trials, and then put them in important, powerful places of power within the government, the CIA, even that over at NASA. And I think that really kickstarted the secret space program, the program behind NASA. And I believe at that time it was actually called NACA, NACA, before it was NASA, but was still supposed to be a government-run public program. But they, in my opinion, took these scientists, and they definitely, in my opinion, had access to the floor plans and the architecture and everything else for the technology for the Hanebü craft, which Hanebü 1 and 2 have pretty much been proven with what's been discovered. I believe that 3 and 4 were definitely developed, and I believe that 4 was actually used to leave Earth's atmosphere, potentially even taking a trip to the moon, and also maybe even potentially to Mars, before we actually launched Apollo 11 to the moon. Which is, it's a huge statement to make, and obviously extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. But when you look at the big picture of what went on behind the scenes, and you really delve deep into the information that has been made public now, that has been declassified, there's still a lot of redacted documents to look at. But when you look at them, there's some stuff that was purposefully, I guess, left unredacted. And you can see clearly what we had to continue to develop the German technologies, which they possibly got from these Antarctican pre-Adamite type people, or these beings that maybe were stranded here, or whatever the case may be. But they found these people and were able to acquire the information to generate this technology through that, and also through some channeling. And I think that we being the military-industrial complex, primarily located in America, want to acquire that information, acquire that knowledge, and definitely probably launch the secret space program long before Apollo started.
Well, they say that anti-gravity was discovered in the 30s, that this has all been sequestered away from us. But there's this, I noticed in the, quote, truther community, there is kind of a debate about whether we actually went to the moon. And my take is that people use that common phrase, you know, never a straight answer about NASA.
Yeah.
But what I think it is I think that we did go, but we didn't get all the answers. We were not told everything, and that these other programs were probably running in parallel, and the public-facing program was the moon launch. Is that pretty much your take as well?
Oh, that's my take, and there's a few, a few things that we should cover when we're talking about this too, in terms of the launch. Well, first of all, there's an image that's been passed around the internet for a very long time, which shows 3 astronauts standing out in Cape Canaveral, Florida, but they have the background grayed out and some rocks that they're standing by some boulders, so they make it look like they were supposedly on the moon with no helmets on. So a lot of the truthers conspiracy theorists have been passing that around saying, oh, this proves that this whole thing is fake, they're on a Hollywood set. No, they were actually, that particular day is a well-documented day in history where they were actually out back, just doing some practice for the actual moon trip.
There was a lot of training. There was a lot of training.
Oh yeah, extensive training. In the original photo, which I put in one of my blogs on Forbidden Knowledge, you'll see the original photo and you'll see the doctored Photoshop photo. So the original photo shows the buildings in the background, the NASA buildings and the training facility and cars and everything else in full color. And the doctored image by the people looking to deceive the conscious community is a black and white image that tried to make it look like it was on the moon with some Photoshop moon rocks and so forth on it. So I provide all of this in my blog. You can see cars clearly in the background and everything else. So that's one thing that has to be debunked. The second thing that I think needs to be debunked right away is this image of a moon boot that is a moon boot print, I should say, on the moon surface. But then directly next to that moon boot print, they have a picture of an Apollo 11 spacesuit with smooth bottoms on the boot. And they're saying that how can we leave a boot print in the moon dust if the boot that the astronaut was wearing didn't have a print on the bottom? Well, I go extensively into this in my blog, and I talk about the fact that the boot print photo has been passed around the internet like a hot potato. And once again, the hoaxes have taken advantage of people that unfortunately are too lazy to do any real research. They hedge their bets on laziness of truth seekers, and they basically want them to believe everything that they put out is a conspiracy. And that's unfortunately what happens in our society right now, in our little community. So I took a picture of the actual, wait.
No, that's okay. Keep going. I thought you.
Oh yeah, I took a picture of the actual spacesuit with the boots laying next to them. See, when you get onto a capsule inside of a rocket ship, there's not a lot of space, number one. Number two, these boots weigh 20 pounds a piece to keep you locked down to the moon surface because the gravity is much less. And they're very clunky. They attach with a Velcro strap. So I put the original image up there from the actual museum with the full suit, with the smooth bottoms, and the slip-on Velcro moonwalking boots that are well documented, that have been, I even put the information about the company that made them with an x-ray of the actual boot itself, showing exactly how they work, how they were fabricated, what they're made of. All the information is contained in that article that I wrote, showing that these boots were basically slip-on boots that you put on when you're getting ready to do your moonwalk, and that the image that has been passed around showing that there's a boot print and no boot is fake. It's just another fake used to trick people in the conscious community. But why would we say that? Why would I say that, yes, we went to the moon and yes, we lied about it, knowing this? Well, there's a couple of things. We sent lunar orbiters up before to the moon, but way before Apollo 11 even went up. And those lunar orbiters sent back images. And those images gave us a hint that there was probably an ancient civilization there, or maybe even a current civilization there on the moon right now. And that sparked the interest, which led to what I call a reconnaissance mission, potentially, where we want to go up there with people we'll showcase to the world that we're on the moon, and but we'll show them a barren landscape. But when the cameras are off, we're collecting information, collecting data, taking photos of things, maybe even potentially bringing bits and pieces of anomalies back with us. So yes, we went to the moon, but we lied about it because we didn't want the population of the world to know what was up there, what was found, what was discovered, that there is a potential ancient civilization, or maybe potentially even people up there now. Because one of the things I show in my blog, that the Apollo 11 black box tapes, which were made available through the Freedom of Information Act, clearly state Neil saying that look at those convex craters down there. I bet the people in there never get out. So that's in the audio directly from NASA.gov, and it's also in the redacted Apollo 11 black box document where they did not redact that statement, that the fact that they believe there's people down there that are not getting out. Interesting statement.
And then there's this other concept that is floating around too, and maybe you can address that a little bit because it's very confusing to people, and that is the Van Allen belt. How did they get through the Van Allen belt and in a safe way on their way both to the moon and back?
Yeah. Data from the Explorer 1 and Explorer 3 mission back in March of 26, I believe, 1958, they detected a belt around the Earth. And Van Allen actually headed this research team. But later they launched another probe in 1958 called the Explorer 4. And then also a little bit later on that year as well, they launched another one. And they discovered that this belt was there, but that it had openings and gaps through it where the magnetic field of the Earth flowed through it. So there's a very good diagram that I actually incorporated into my blog that shows the Van Allen radiation belts, what they would look like if you could see them with the visible eyes around the planet, and the different gaps and openings that one can set a course through to reduce the amount of exposure. That's number one. Number two, they also discovered that a person would have to be in an unprotected capsule for an extended amount of time. I think the period was almost 3 months before you received a lethal dose of radiation through the belt. Now, since it's only going to take them 1 day, less than a day actually, to pass through the belt, they realized that if they could track a path through one of those openings, one of those highways, so to speak, they would very easily be able to get through and set their course for the moon. And all you have to do at that point is just, when the Earth is in a particular position, you set your rendezvous point. It's very, very easy to do. I mean, technology is even in our cell phones can calculate that these days. But I show a very good description showing where the Apollo took off, what the path it took through the opening in the Van Allen radiation belts on its way to the moon. And it had no effect on the passengers whatsoever. His initial alarm call was, hey, this is my job. This is what I'm supposed to tell you guys. And he did his job, Van Allen did. Much later realized as well, just like everybody else, that they weren't even an issue anymore. But his statements and everything else are never put into the official record for a lot of the conspiracy theorists, and they just take the old information from before Apollo 11 and they run it as if it's the current, information. Right. And they make you think that, it's impossible to leave the Earth's atmosphere when it's totally not.
I saw a discussion on Facebook between some people. They posted the picture that Neil Armstrong took of Buzz coming down the ladder. So there's this meme, who took the picture, if this is Neil Armstrong. And so they've completely twisted. This is what's kind of frightening about the dumbing down of our society, is that people don't know history. They don't know the factual, they don't trust anything, and they make up stuff.
They make up a lot of stuff. This is a big problem we have. Fabrication of information, literal and absolute total fabrication. And it's really, it's like a little bit of a virus within the community right now, because a lot of people will listen to an account that seems like they've got a little steam, got a little bit of following going. And since that person says it, they will just literally believe it and not do their own research. This is why I always tell people when I get done talking about something, follow everything that I tell you, do your own research on what I'm telling you. I leave massive captions underneath my content posts so that people have enough information to go do Google searches and search for information, because I want to create researchers. I don't want people that are just like, they might as well go to a temple and sit there and listen to somebody speak for a couple hours and just take it as, his word.
People are not vetting the information. What's even worse is right below that, several times throughout the conversation, people kept saying that was Buzz Aldrin. There's the facts. They would post links and people would still come in
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like a virus, and they just take it and they take it for word and they run with it. I mean, when they run hard too, you know. And I see so much information like that online, and I don't like to call people out in public, even though they like to try to call me out.
Yeah.
I try to send them DMs and say, hey, this is an alternative perspective on what you're posting, just to, here are some more facts to look into. But a lot of times they don't even care. They just leave the post up, knowing that it's wrong and bad information after I've educated them about it. They just leave it up because a lot of these people are looking for controversy for likes. They don't have any real knowledge. See, and when you don't have any real knowledge or information, you don't have any real research behind you. Like, I can get on the show with you guys and talk for 2-3 hours nonstop. I don't have to look at any notes. I don't have to be stopping and cutting and going. I know my information. The people that are putting a lot of this junk out, you can't have a conversation with them like that. You can't take them to a show, put them on the green screen, and do a 1-hour episode with no cuts, because they really have no knowledge, no information whatsoever. They've just been regurgitating the information they've seen online.
It's the, I think what Terrence McKenna called these pernicious forms of misinformation, that I'd love to hear him talk. It's too bad he's gone. But he mentioned that this relativism where everybody has their own truth. And when you tell them the real truth or give them objective truth, they cling to their own truth.
Yeah,
so.
That's true. It's a hardcore thing. I mean, the Hollywood part of the whole thing was the fact that, yes, they did fake some episodes or scenes of being on the moon, most likely in areas where they didn't want people to know what was really in the background. So what I did was I took a Apollo 11 original video footage, which is available online, of the LM, the landing module, returning back to the command module. And I said to myself, if I could find an original video where before Photoshop, before all this CGI and all this other stuff, and I could screenshot that, bring it into Photoshop, and turn the contrast down a little bit, because the moon dust reflects a lot of light back up to the camera and makes it hard to see what's down there. As soon as I turned the contrast down, I discovered one of the most amazing dome structures on the moon surface, with structures on the inside of it. And that actually made the news. And it's right there beneath the landing module as it's ascending back to the command module.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, I'll send it to you. It's really, it's mind-blowing stuff. So I knew right away, I was like, man, this is really amazing. They knew it was up there. They knew it was remnants up there, or maybe even potentially a current civilization up there. Who knows? Because when I look at the craters on the moon and look at craters on Earth, I see two totally different types of craters. On Earth, I see an angle where the projectile hits the surface and then runs across the land, creating a skid mark and then a crater. You also find ejecta all around the edge of the crater. But when you look at the moon, you don't see these long path lines of intersection, and you don't tend to see the ejecta at the edge of the crater walls. And in the center of the craters, you always tend to see what looks like a structure, which is very, very strange and bizarre. How is a structure getting into the center of almost every single crater? And then when you zoom in on those structures, it looks like geometry. It's weird.
Yeah, there's just a lot of weird stuff. We put together a short little photo documentary of just a few pictures that Aage had collected over some time. And so you also headed up an anomaly organization. Mm-hmm. Maybe talk about that a little bit too. People should know about that.
Yeah, I'm not just talking off the top of my head. We actually, I got into anomaly hunting back in around 2011, 2012. And anomaly hunting is when you're looking at space probe data and rover data from official agencies and analyzing them literally centimeter by centimeter to see what's in the images and if you could find any obfuscated anomalies or any anomalies out in the open. And an anomaly is something that, an object that's that shouldn't be there, something that's out of place, an out of place object, something that shows maybe geometry, something that you can relate to something that you've already seen on Earth, and you can kind of say this correlation that kind of looks the same, or it doesn't appear to be like it should be within the surrounding terrain. So myself and I then started meeting other anomaly hunters from around the world. And we then formed a group called the United Family of Anomaly Hunters, which we've now downloaded over 1 million images and cataloged over 58,000 anomalies, many of which dozens have made the news. I mean, even mainstream news have asked questions about some of the things we've discovered. They've made it into books and everything else by famous authors and so forth, even in some documentaries. So these anomalies are there, they're real, they're objects that are out of place. And what's really amazing is Some of the anomalies that we find on Earth with these megalithic structures that we can't explain how they were built, we've now seen some of these same type of construction techniques used on structures on the moon and also structures on Mars. And what does that tell you? We're talking about an interplanetary ancient civilization that was here at one point in the distant past that has left remnants behind that the powers that be don't want us to know existed.
Yeah. And I want to ask also, though, do you kind of agree with the fact, first of all, it is a fact, and we know that from papers, that the Americans and possibly also the English, they were able to get their hands on either 1 or 2 hominin tubes. And since they had those, there's some old papers that I got a hold of written in German that show that, yes, they did go to the moon.
Yeah.
Even the Germans did in 1945. And I think that maybe the Americans also were able to figure out how to fly these things, and they went to the moon before 1969. Do you think that's possible too?
I actually think it's 1,000% possible. There are some structures in Aristarchus crater that appear to be Germanic by nature. And those anomalies are there. There's no doubt about it that they're there. They actually have to resemble the shape of a swastika. And I believe that when Kennedy came out and made that famous speech about going to the moon, I believe that we were already on Mars with a very small amount of people for dispatch. And I think that we've been on Mars for a very, very long time, building and developing a breakaway civilization. And it's not just myself. We have, a friend of mine, Laura Eisenhower, who's the great-granddaughter of Dwight D. Eisenhower, former president of the United States, who says that she was basically, I guess what they did was they sent somebody, a handler, after her. This handler, his mission was to literally get her to fall in love with him, I guess, handsome-looking guy, and she actually did. But in the end game was for him to get her to go to Mars permanently. They were building a breakaway civilization up there. And this was in 2006. They were supposed to leave, and she told them that she realized what was happening. She told them she's not going, she's staying here. But she made the news of that. She's been on Georgia, and she's been many lectures and conferences talking about this experience, where they really aggressively wanted her to go to Mars, and she turned them down. And this was basically a planned scenario where they were looking for specific bloodlines, specific people. And I also really do believe, looking deeper into it, some of the letters that were left behind, and like a physicist in Seattle, Washington, police found a letter where he left the letter behind. He disappeared. A prominent person saying that he was going to leave the planet for a better life, even abandon his own kids. I mean, and these letters have been found all around the planet around that same time frame from geologists, physicists, doctors, just disappearing out of this, out of thin air, just gone. And then you have all these very strange abduction numbers that happen every single year with people. And I really do think that, in my opinion, I could be wrong, but in my opinion, I really do believe that a certain amount of people have been abducted from this planet and taken here to do a lot of the slave labor to help with the infrastructure development.
Yes, you got it.
Yeah, I believe.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, no doubt.
Well, 800,000 kids disappearing around the globe, yeah, that's where they're going, a lot of them. They're raised like cattle.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right, man.
And this thing on Mars, though, that started back probably in the late 1960s with Alternative 3, didn't it?
Absolutely. Alternative 3 is where it started. They had 3 different alternatives. One was to launch a nuclear bomb into the atmosphere and try to see if they would blow away, release the waste from the atmosphere, which they actually did try, which was kind of dumb. But, I don't know what we're thinking here as human beings, but we tried it. The second, to build a underground base, I believe it was, and the third was to go to Mars and create a breakaway civilization. And I really do believe that Alternative 3 was the end game, and that's where they went. It's like the new Elysium. Matter of fact, there's a spot on Mars called Elysium. And when people hear Mars, they start to think, wow, you can't go and live there. It's cold, it's dry, there's no water. No, everybody, do your research. All that information has been overturned and has made it into even the mainstream science books now. The fact that Mars has a magnetic field, it has something called bow shock, which spins cosmic rays around the planet as it orbits on its axis, spins around the sun. It's got an atmosphere. It has a rain cycle. It has billions of tons of liquid water. Press releases have gone out. You see water coming down the side of the mountain. They just found a 1,200 hectare acre lake on Mars as well. They now say, NASA official press release, the soil on Mars is better for farming than the soil on Earth. How do they know this? Okay, they claim it was just an experiment that they discovered, but no, they know it because they've had their hands on that soil for a while. There's a lot of stuff that they have. They have instruments on these rovers that extract a lot of this regolith and dust and dirt and mud, and they analyze it chemically and transmit the information and data back, even if they don't bring it back physically. So they know exactly what that soil is capable of doing. It's not even a mystery.
I think in some of those experiments, didn't they actually add, or they actually kind of created a kind of primordial soup to see what would happen? I think in one of those, they had like 10 shots to do it with, and
that's
they had,
right.
like, little cartridges that they would experiment with. So yeah, this is that's the public facing. But I think what you're alluding to also is the maybe some of the secret space program stuff.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they've been looking to develop that place as a billionaire getaway. A getaway billionaire. A lot of billionaires are already set to go to Mars on a one-way trip. Now, what does that tell you? Elon Musk has taken 80,000 people to Mars. Now he wants to take 1 million. 80,000 people are probably already pre-booked and ready to go. A billionaire who's used to living in the creature comforts here on Earth with the scenery, the service, the butlers, the private jets, everything you name it. Yes, some of them are adventurers, but they're used to living a very lavish lifestyle, the majority of them. I don't think a billionaire is going to up and go to a cold, dry rock and live in a tin can and wear a tin can until he dies or she dies. I really do believe there's an infrastructure already established there, the security and military already established there, and they're going there to live on an adventure until they die. And when the cameras turn on, they'll come out in front of the tin can and they'll wear their tin suits and they'll wave at the camera. And then when the cameras turn off, they're going to go behind that rock and go to an underground shelter and live fairly decent, I believe.
So what do you think about these accounts, like people like Randy Kramer and Corey Good, some of these people that have been coming forward? What's your feeling about a lot of that?
I really can't discount it because I'm not them and I wasn't there. And that's another problem I think we have too. Sometimes we tend to discount people that come out with these experiences and talk about them just because it seems a little outlandish. I can't really discount them because I don't have enough data to make a claim, yes, they did or no, they didn't. I will say that anything is totally possible. I know that from being in the private space industry now with my own company, we're now 300 years of the general population technologically, 300 years. So whatever you can think of has already been done. Whatever you can conceive in your mind, literally, technologically, has already been done. Wormholes, time travel, utilizing warp drives, EM drives, all these things that, that seem like sci-fi are true reality and do exist already, even if they're not fully in use. But behind the scenes in these dark budget projects, these black projects, there could be situations where they are doing these types of jumps with soldiers and bringing them back in time, or it could be part of some sophisticated MK Ultra, advanced MK Ultra mind game that they could be using to test and see what happens with the general public. We just really don't know. We just really don't know. But it's interesting claims that have been made. I just do know that based on the Mars science data, that if you were on Mars and you were about 4 feet tall or lower, it'd be very easy for you to survive there. If you were much taller than 4 feet, it'd be a little more difficult. You might need an acclimation mask to wear to enhance the oxygen or some of the other gas you would need to breathe. But it's probably approximately like being 17,000 feet, 14 to 17,000 feet above sea level here on Earth. So it's very interesting.
I think that also when it comes to Mars, I think we've been lied to majorly because I have found NASA prints showing blue sky up there. And in one of the NASA prints, we have a bird looking just like a bird flying in it. That is in the Gigapan pictures. So it's got to be air. Otherwise, we wouldn't have blue sky.
Right. Absolutely. There's oxygen. There's the blue skies come from light refraction. So there's enough gases in the sky that would be very similar to Earth gases to refract light in a way that would give it a blue color.
Yeah.
The IRSO, which is the Indian Space Agency, sent a probe. They did their own private fundraising and they raised $3 billion. $3 million, that's all they needed to send an actual satellite to Mars on their own. The same satellite would have cost NASA $30 billion. It's a ridiculous number. But they sent it there, and the first image they sent back to Mars it looked like Earth. Blue skies, lakes, water, atmosphere, the whole thing. It was an incredible, incredible image. About a week and a half later, the NASA head guide forgot his name, Bolden at that time. He was a new person now, but Bolden at the time traveled straight to India. And you see them shaking hands and making an agreement to become partners. And then guess what happened to that image? It came down the server and they uploaded one that was dark red, false color image. And they say false color on all their images. So right away they wanted to get it. They wanted to get that out of the public's mind. That it's blue skies. You know, the ground's not totally red like they try to show everybody. And they even have software that they've already admitted to that takes images and puts this red filter on them and literally obfuscates it there. They say because it makes it easier to transmit the images back to Earth for downloading, which is a bunch of garbage. You know, so they really try to keep it a secret. And why? People say, well, why would they do this if it's real? Why? Because knowledge is power. You see? So if I go to Mars knowing that there's remnants of an ancient civilization there that was more highly technologically advanced than us on Earth, that means the odds that I'm going to find technology laying around is incredible, high percentage. I'm going to take down different types of technologies, different types of microchips and processors and weapons and everything else that I can find and discover up there. And I'm going to hoard that information and keep it because that knowledge gives me power over everybody else. I can now develop things in secret and private. I can develop weapons that supersede everybody else's weapons. I can develop technologies that supersede everybody else's technologies, and I can be first to do it. And I can keep the people dumbed down about it. And by the time they find out about this, it'll be hundreds of years later, and we'll trickle down to them a little bit at a time. But meanwhile, we'll maintain supremacy over them. And that's what it's really all about.
I want to ask you, I just itching to ask you this. It's a personal question. If you had the chance with sufficiently safe technology to you go and your family with you to Mars, would you go?
I would go in a heartbeat. I'm ready to go right now. I'm literally ready right now.
I got my hand up too.
Go, let's do it. Branson's got a great, ship. And the first one failed, and the second one did okay, but the third one did really good. And I really think, he's looking to do two-way trips and things like that. I really feel like it's my destiny to probably not die on this planet. I wouldn't mind, shedding this avatar body on another planet or another moon. I don't have a problem with that whatsoever.
Yeah, I feel like we've kind of been ripped off of our space destiny. That I've told you this last time we talked. I'd be happy to be cleaning toilets in some spacecraft, just knowing that I would be able to take leave on some other planet, just like Star Trek. I would love to be. Wouldn't matter. I wouldn't need rank or anything. I would just love to be along for the ride.
No, Tom, there's always this thing called shore leave, so you could come back.
Yeah. This amazing thing is a study I was reading online about the Arabs in the 1800s and how fast they were advancing technologically. And they were saying that if it wasn't for the Papal Inquisition, which suppressed and oppressed and tortured and killed 80 million people and literally beat Christianity into the world, if it wasn't for that, the Arabs would have been on the moon in the 1800s.
Yeah.
So that's incredible. So imagine where we would be, because in 100 years, we went from a horse, buggy, and carriage to sending remote control cars to other planets. Imagine if we started in the 1800s where we'd be now. We'd already be traveling to stars.
The religions have just really kept us in the dark.
Oh my God, destroyed us.
Just totally destroyed the planet.
Yeah, literally, unfortunately, yeah.
Boy, I really appreciate you enlightening us on this. Are there any other subjects that you are deeply involved with? Maybe some of your travels and research that you also wanted to talk about?
Right now, I guess the biggest thing is for me just to continue my world travels. I've been all over the world now. I've been around the world twice. Still a lot more places to go. You really begin to realize how big this planet is. Once you start traveling to these places, then you try to, I got to hit this target. I got to hit this target. I got to get this information. I got to research over here, research over there. And you still realize that there's hundreds of more places to go. And it's like, oh my gosh, I got to live a long time to get to these places.
Yeah.
But, just so being able to.
So little time.
So little time. But maybe the stem cell research will help me and give me some extended life, and I can stop my telomeres from shrinking, and I can maybe live an extra 100 years. That'd be great to continue my travels.
Well, you just mentioned something that you said something about you never realized how big the planet was till you got out and traveled. And I think this is something like we talked about this before. I know where you're at on this side of it, on the flat Earth question. But now it seems to me that when I get into this discussion with these folks, they don't seem to really realize how big the Earth is and how big that arc is. They just don't have it. They're looking at little pictures on the internet, and they
Right.
think that's what they see, and they just don't get it.
One of the biggest hoax images in the Flat Earth Society is an image of the Earth taken, which is only, I have the original image and I have the cutout piece. So it's not even a scale image, but it's a picture of the globe here, and then next to it is a tiny piece, which is approximately 4 centimeters. And they say that, see, it's flat. And that's the one that surfaced and went around and went around. It's just a photoshopped image. They always say that there's all the images from NASA and everything, ESA are photoshopped, when there's literally thousands of non-photoshopped images there, but nobody wants to look at them. There's non-CGI images there, but they take these photoshopped images that they claim are ancient Navajo images and ancient Sumerian images, which are made by somebody in a modern day computer on Photoshop, literally. They never exist. They don't exist anywhere in any history text. I've read over 1,000 texts now between books, scriptures, Sumerian tablets, and all different types of emerald tablets and everything else, cylinder scrolls, and nowhere ever, and I've been all around the world, have I seen these faked images that they're showing and spreading around. It's just a bunch of garbage that they spread around. And unfortunately, people, again, they're too lazy to do any research. They just take it, but they don't know how big this planet. They have no clue. A lot of these people that are making these claims don't even have passports. And I've talked to a few of them. The majority of them don't even have high school diplomas. One gentleman, I asked him, I said, let me ask you a question. He was trying to go back to my comments. He was telling me that what I'm talking is a lie because space doesn't even exist. I said, really? I said, okay. I said, well, what are you breathing right now? He didn't even know what he was breathing. I said, how many atmospheric gases are you breathing in? He goes, atmospheric gases? I said, yeah, we don't just breathe in oxygen. There's additional gases that you inhale when you take a breath. Can you name any of them? He couldn't name any of them. And this is one of the big guys in this whole movement. I said, let me ask you a question. Do you have a high school diploma? He goes, no, I dropped out of school. I said, well, I see the problem here. The problem is, and I don't want to put you down, but the problem is you're poorly educated on basic science and basic physics. I mean, just basic, not even advanced, just the basic science and physics. Unfortunately, you didn't grasp that information. And now you're taking it from this very skewed perspective, and you're coming up with your whole concept about it. And on top of that, you're using that to create a following and likes. So you're leading people down a wrong path. And of course, they didn't like it. So they started attacking me and creating forbidden knowledge, hate pages, everything else. I really don't care.
I think the worst part of it is that they have been taught through this movement not to trust any information.
Yes.
So once you toss out your baselines, you have nothing.
Nothing.
The
Earth is 6,000 years old. You know, their deity is coming back, their savior is coming back to save them and rapture them. And so it's a very religious mindset. And it's unfortunately, this style that's put out there with this flat earth is really targeted towards people that are susceptible to fanaticism. And you can tell that they're fanatics because if you go on an Instagram live, they jump on the live is be talking about whatever, anything, not even have to do with the planet or shapes. They have to go flat, it's flat, it's flat. If you make a YouTube video about ice cream cones, they're gonna jump on there and go, it's flat, it's flat. So it's this fanaticism that you see, it takes them over, and it really becomes an obsession. They can't go anywhere without blurting it out, and it's almost as if, it's almost like a sickness, you know, it's some type of compulsive disorder.
I see it as malware for the mind, because once it seems to embed itself, people really seem to get stuck with it. That and a lot of other stuff that's going around. It just seems like people are clinging to really erroneous information and not with no basis in fact or anything. It's just like they've tossed out science. Science is all a lie. Tossed out everything. It's all a lie. I don't know how you can function in life if you throw out everything. I just
see the biggest problem that I talk to this about a lot to the people that follow my accounts. Because I'll post an article, let's say, from CNN, where they show satellite imagery of Hurricane Maria destroying Puerto Rico. And people actually went on there and commented stating that satellites aren't real, which means, and CNN is a liar, which means that the hurricane is fake. And I'm going, you are taking this to a whole new level, man. This is a whole other angle. So my family members that lost all their properties in Puerto Rico, and my aunt who unfortunately didn't make it in St. Thomas, that all was fake. Is that what you're trying to tell me? You know, so discernment is a big problem. The ability, I tell people, you have to take information. I take information from all sources. Why have I read over 1,000 books of text? I want everything. I want the Bible. I want the Quran. I want the Sumerian tablets. I want the Outer Ace epic. I want the Mahabharata. I want all this stuff. I want everything. Give me everything. Let me digest it. Let me make the connections. Let me search it out. Let me research everything to the base reality, base information, and come up with an educated assumption or hypothesis as to what happened and what is happening. But they don't have the capability of taking information from all sources. Oh, it's CNN, I can't look at it. Oh, it's Fox News, I can't look at it. No, you can look at it. It's up to you to develop the discernment to figure out what's real and what's fake, what's good and what's bad. What can you take from this that sounds accurate? Can I research this part and put it together with something else? See, that's too much work for the average person. They want instantaneous information, instantaneous answers, and they don't want to do any work for it.
It's more comfortable for many to be kind of stay within a closed little echo chamber to reinforce that fanaticism and everything else, that they just keep these narratives reinforced, and they don't. I don't even know how to deal with it at this point anymore.
I think the flat Earth has become almost like a religion, and you cannot discuss about religion because nothing makes sense to them. It's just the fanaticism, as you say. Yeah,
exactly. That's what it is. So that's what they are, unfortunately. But I'm going to keep moving on, and I take all of the shout outs that they give me. I call them shout outs because every time they post about me and the fact that I'm leading people down the wrong path with science and everything else, it's just a free shout out because they tag my accounts and more people follow me and more people follow me.
Yeah.
I never tag them in their accounts. I never even mention their names. So it's a free shout out. It's a one-way shout out, and it just helps me continue to grow and teach people. Some of those people, I'm pretty sure, have woken up to some of the information I put out and have seen things hopefully in a slightly different way. And, some maybe are just trolls, but I think a lot of people have really woken up and say, okay, well, let me follow this guy and see what he's talking about because it sounds a little bit more feasible than the path, maybe that I was on. So I'm hoping that takes shape and that continues on. So I never really go after them or target them or go on their pages and stuff. I kind of just stay away from them and let them keep giving me free shout outs. But it is what it is, man. Everything's going great. The book is a bestseller, and a lot of people are getting a lot of great information from the content you're putting in.
You said you've got a new version of it out, and I think you said you have a copy handy. Oh, wow.
Yeah, man.
Very cool. Very good.
Much nicer cover. This is Compendium of the Emerald Tablets, Volume 2. I'll send this out to you immediately. And so basically what happened, the first book was a financial loss. I mean, it actually cost me money to sell it. It had 444 pages. It had larger font, more space between. It had larger images in there of the same images. And it had some very hefty science articles that were not altered in a way to get more people to understand them a little better. And I started getting people contacting me, trying to ask me more about what this science was about versus what the book was about. And I ran into a very beautiful young lady named Laura Cantu. She lives on the West Coast, and she's a publisher with Ritual Publishing. And she said, look, I read your book. I think it's phenomenal. I think we could take it to another level if you come under me and let me show you how to really tweak this thing. So she took out a lot of the empty spaces. She shrunk the font size down. That took out tons of pages. The more pages, the less profit, obviously. She also shrunk down some of the images. And so I don't know why I was using images that were one full-size page. I didn't even think about it. So she made some of the images smaller. And we took out a lot of the color images, made some black and white. And I had enough room to even add an acknowledgement section. And Jimmy Church from Jimmy Church Radio actually wrote the foreword in the new book. And I got quotes in there from Eric Von Daniken, Jimmy Church, George Nori, just a ton of people. Donnie Arcade, my MIT professor, Dr. Tara Swart, who's also an author. Just a lot of famous people that left great comments, and I was able to put those into the book. So the book is 238 pages or something like that now. It actually makes a very small profit, and it's a bestseller right now. At its height, it was at number 6 on the Amazon bestseller list in Ancient Civilization, which is phenomenal. I was ahead of Eric Von Daniken and everybody else. I was like, wow, it's incredible.
So you can get this on Amazon, but they can also go to your website also. I put it in the chat room, forbiddenknowledge.com.
Appreciate it, yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. So
on my website, it will be autographed. If you get it from Amazon.com, I won't be able to autograph it, but the website, you'll get the autographed copy.
Oh, excellent. Yeah. And I just hold it up again. It's a beautiful cover.
Thank you. Yeah, she redid the cover for me and everything.
Yeah, we say we're not supposed to judge a book by its cover, but go ahead. That's a good work.
We definitely are.
It's beautiful. Yeah, very good.
It's a great cover. It's very, very, in the back has some of the quotes from Eric Von Daniken.
Oh, nice. Very nice.
And,
Yeah, that'll make an
You know,
excellent addition to anybody's library. So,
yeah.
well, you've been traveling. Out of all this traveling, is there a site that just keeps flashing, pay attention that you've been to?
You know, I have to say, got to go back to Giza, to Egypt. Well, not just even Giza, really the entire area, because I've been, on half-month trips there to just stay and go to all the different temples and so forth. And, even going there, Machu Picchu was the most beautiful. Machu Picchu was amazing. And flying over the Nazca line and everything else. But it's something about going inside that Great Pyramid, something about going to the Valley of the Kings and the Valley of the Queens and going inside of these tombs and looking at the mastery of this architecture and going to Saqqara and going to Memphis, Egypt, and going to Alexandria and the Serapeum and all these places and just looking at this and then knowing in my mind, I've seen similar objects on other planets. And then Thoth himself claims to have built the Great Pyramid, which is what the book is about too. It's just mind blowing to be able to touch and be in that area where you know that this massive advanced civilization existed. And I really do believe that those pyramids on Giza, at least the Great Pyramid itself and the Sphinx, were built about 36,000 to 40,000 years ago.
That's got to be
yeah, it
fascinating.
is huge.
Yeah, that's a bucket list item for me, because I know what it's like when you cross paths with something historic and you just kind of are able to make that timeline intersect with your own. There's something about that. It's a kind of a magical moment. I had a chance to touch a musical instrument that was used by somebody famous one time, and it's kind of like you're standing there. You're kind of like, wow, our timeline's actually got crossed with this object. So yeah, I can get why that's fascinating.
Yep, absolutely, man. It's really amazing. And I had a chance to go to the Temple of Dendera and go to the underground crypt and see like incredible stelas of etched into granite stone, magnetic granite stone of these jet pillars. With you have these ankhs with the jet pillar inside the ankh, and then you have a person holding up technology. Some look like light bulbs, and they're wireless, and it's like, wow, this is incredible. You've got to pay the security guy a couple extra dollars, and the pyramid priest a couple of dollars to let you go down there. But it's well worth it. And then I got a chance to sit inside the Holy of Holies and do a meditation by myself. I mean, this is the incredible stuff that you can't just say, I'm just going to go out here and do this. It was just mind blowing, man. I really can't wait to go back in 2021.
We got a couple people in the chat room going to mention something you've talked about extensively. A guy named Harry. Just want to shout out to the folks in the chat room. Thank you, folks, for coming in. And this is something you've talked about. One of the gentlemen in the chat room said there's a spaceship hidden under the Sphinx. And you've talked about this.
This is inside the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. I mean, he talks about it. It's in my book. And what's really amazing is he talks about the fact that he left a ship underneath the Sphinx paw. And he also says that deep in the future, from deep space, there's going to be an enemy or a foe coming to fight us. I mean, he says this, in these ancient tablets. And he says, but the person that is smart enough to free my ship from beneath the Sphinx will defeat them with ease.
Wow.
Now, what happened about 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, there was a Discovery Channel documentary getting ready to air where they would talk, they had promoted it and everything. They discovered something underneath the Sphinx about a mile down with this ground penetrating radar. All of a sudden on the air date, I'm sitting there at the edge of my seat and it's canceled. What happened? I really do think that they probably went to one of those tunnels or tunneled to it on the ground so nobody could see what was going on, to see what's down there. Many more researchers have been able to come back with these open caverns or areas of concern underneath the Sphinx, showing that there's objects or something massive deep beneath the Sphinx. And I really do believe that it's possible by now that the military has already tunneled to it to find out what it is.
What about this anomaly they found that was actually in the mainstream media? Something is unusual in a part of the pyramid. There's some sort of a heat map shows something. What do you think that might be is inside the pyramids?
There's a chamber discovered on top of the Grand Gallery. In that chamber, it's a massive opening, which I believe links back to Thoth and the Emerald Tablets. We was talking about the Hall of Records were hidden there. And again, more science keeps confirming what's happening from what Thoth said in ancient times. There's also this heat signature that's been shown. Now, when you look at some of the small rovers that they put into these pyramid, and going through different doors, there's areas where you can see coding for electrical wiring. In other words, like right now in modern times, we would code it with these orange codes. We say, okay, this is here, this is there. Don't dig into this because this particular wire is coming through this area of the ground or whatever. They have the same exact thing, like we're using in modern time, what we call modern times, in ancient times, inside the Great Pyramid. And I believe that there's parts of the pyramid which have technology still in them deep beneath the stone that could be getting active at certain times of the year or under certain atmospheric conditions. Because we know the giant pyramid was a gigantic stone, multifunctional stone computer, was also a wireless power generator, to me a portal generator, I believe as well. And beneath that structure, they've now found something that Thoth talks about called the Halls of Amenti, which is an actual geological point now. You can search it on Google and find it. It's really there, the Halls of Amenti, right on Giza. And the pyramid underneath there, they discovered hundreds and hundreds of rooms about a mile deep beneath the Great Pyramid that extend out about a mile underneath the sand. The rooms that he talked about that exist in the Emerald Tablets are actually there. I talk about this in the book as well.
Now, there have been people that have said things about the Emerald Tablets that maybe give a little province about the people who contest the authenticity of the tablets. Can you cover that a little bit? Because there are people who say, well, you didn't have the originals, this was a this or that.
Oh, yeah, they're, this is what people do. They like to, they want to discredit right away when something that they don't want to spend the time on researching for themselves. And this is another big problem that we have, unfortunately, in the conscious community. The immediate move to discredit any information or anything. A lot of people that have made these kind of statements, they say, let me ask you a question. Have you researched the history of the tablets? No. Have you read the tablets? No. The same people, Zachariah Sitchin was a liar. He made it all up. I'm like, okay, tell me which tablets you've actually read then. Oh, I haven't read any of the tablets. Oh, you haven't read the tablets? Did you research any of them? Oh, no. This is the same consistent thing I find. Even somebody very famous, I can't name his name because I don't want to ruin him, but he came to me and told me that the whole Zachariah Sitchin stories were all made up, and he channeled them and all this other kind of stuff. And I'm going, huh? The book says, right in the prefaces, where he got his sources of information from the Epic of Atrahasis, the Epic of Gilgamesh, the Enuma Elish, the seventh chapter of creation, the Book of Yahweh, the Gospel of the Holy 12, the Mahabharata, the Bhagavad. I mean, I keep going. This is all
Nagabadi,
Nagabadi. I mean, I keep going. He's saying where he got the information from. He just tried to paint it into a story, into a picture. But he was never a translator of Sumerian tablets and all this crazy stuff that have been going out there on YouTube. So the problem is that people, again, with the Emerald Tablets, I'll just read it directly. The history of the Emerald Tablets is very strong and well documented.
Yep.
Original text written in Thoth's Atlantean language, and the full version that I'm referencing right now, I'm talking about, is from Michael Doriel, and you can even download it on crystallinks.com, the tablet information themselves, the deciphered information. But a new translation was recently published from the Arabic version of the Emerald Tablet, and it's called The Book of Causes, written by the famous Thomas Aquinas. This is something that's publicly available. He was inspired by, and even says it, the Emerald Tablet to write the Book of Causes. You have a translation by Sir Isaac Newton, which is the Emerald Tablet, which is actually housed in King's College Library at Cambridge University. This is publicly accessible. You have Philip of Tripoli, also translated the Emerald Tablets in 1240 AD. He was a famous writer, and he also wrote a book from it that basically inspired him to write a book called The Secret of Creation and the Art of Nature in 683 AD. That goes way back. And then, of course, famous author Roger Bacon, who was accepted into Oxford University at the age of 13. He translated and wrote a version of the Emerald Tablets. He was an English Franciscan friar who placed considerable emphasis on the study of nature through empirical methods. In the early modern era, he was regarded as a wizard. And he was famous for his story of the mechanical necromantic brazen head, which he developed kind of a robotic force. Sometimes he was accredited as one of the earliest European advocates for the modern scientific method. And he was inspired by Aristotle and also by another scholar named an Arab scientist named Alexander, which was into quantum physics, quantum mechanics thousands of years ago. So we're talking about very studious people here, okay? That's just a small amount. I haven't even gotten to the full list of the people. I'm talking about Queen of Sheba. I mean, I can just keep going, that have had access to this information and deciphered it over the years.
That's
it's very
good.
valid.
I'm glad you were able. I think you needed that. I like hearing it from you. I know it's in the book, but it's good that you were given this moment to kind of really say it and address it, because
Yeah.
again, we're being attacked from all these different angles of people who have no basis, no evidence, no.
Nothing. Well, there's a guy out there that started attacking my book, who didn't even. So I said, let me give you a free copy so you can read it and see what the book is really about. Because the part that you're harping on, whether it's 36,000 years old or whether it's 2,000 years old, it doesn't really matter. What really matters is the content of the information in the book and the power that it has to enlighten you and take you to another level consciously. You're missing the whole point of the book itself. You're getting caught up on time frames instead of getting caught up on knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. And he wouldn't take a free copy of the book, and he continued to propagate and put out lies and information and everything else. So, unfortunately and unfortunately, that's the way it is. Fortunately, a lot of people don't think like that, and a lot of people have taken the book, and the people that have acquired it and bought it and gotten it are ecstatic and excited. And teachers have contacted me from schools telling me that they're teaching information in schools. Music teachers, because it has this information about cymatic frequencies and vibrations in it, have used this in schools in London. And college professors have actually taught some of the information from my book in their college courses, in their classes, and lectured on it. So I'm ecstatic and I'm pumped and happy, man.
This is rediscovered information that's been sitting there that has, it balances out, for so long. Like, for example, like the Nag Hammadi texts contradict a lot of what people have grown up with as their Bible.
Yeah.
And so it's almost like, if you've got to have an open mind, and I think in order to progress or evolve up, you've got to open your mind a little bit and say, okay, what are these other sources? What's really going on? What have I been told? How am I programmed?
Right.
Can I even break my programming? So.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. I mean, it's important. I'm glad you mentioned that, because I made a post earlier today. I just want to read it. It was just a meme that I put up, but to me, it was very powerful. And it's a Muhammad Ali quote where he says, "A man who views the world the same as at 50 as he did when he was 20 has wasted 30 years of his life." A man who views the world the same at 50 as he did at 20 has wasted 30 years of his life. That was Muhammad Ali. And I think he's totally accurate with that. Even myself, I find, as I've gone from beginning this journey to where I am now consciously and how I understand the ancient past, slightly has altered. I used to think, wow, in 2011, is the Bureau going to crash into Earth? Well, that's gone from my mind now. Now I realize that it's a real planet that exists and it orbits a brown dwarf star. And that brown dwarf star is far beyond the orbit of Pluto, but it's still within the inner Oort cloud area, which means it's part of our solar system. It's obtained its own orbit around our sun, and it's not going to crash into Earth. But what is going to happen is, gravitationally, that brown dwarf has an effect on the inner planets, the planets in our inner solar system that orbits our sun every 4,200 years. And that causes global warming. It enhances global warming, I should say, not only on Earth, but all planets and moons in our solar system. Ice caps are melting, the cores are getting warmer. So global warming is not just from piles passing gas and emissions from cars. It's a lot bigger than that. It has to do a lot to do with gravitational waves. So I go into this kind of stuff too. But your mind, it begins to expand as you begin to understand, you research, develop, learn, and research more, and gain more perspective and get more science data. Then all of a sudden you can then slightly, not completely, but you begin to get a better view of what's really is going to happen, potentially could happen, and what may happen in the ancient past as well. But it takes a lot of time and energy and effort, and a lot of people don't want to do that.
This recent developments, I have of the opinion that I think there is a disclosure process that has actually been accelerated. We had this last fall, this tic-tac-toe. Then we see this recent series on History Channel with Tom DeLonge, where they actually talk about it being a fleet of UFOs. And so it seems like the information is starting to be released. Yeah. We had Bob Lazar's documentary. Are you of that same opinion that this disclosure is underway?
Oh, I believe it's totally underway. I mean, I got a phone call a year and a half ago from two Travel Channel producers, and they both flew me out, and I did those shows, and those shows I thought just disappeared, and now all of a sudden they're out. One is called UFO. This is 2 UFO shows on Travel Channel.
I was blown away by that. I said Travel Channel, and then I saw an article about some of this stuff in People magazine, and so the bleed is going out into these non-traditional channels. So yes, I absolutely noticed that when you said that. Travel, I was like, what? UFO show on Travel? What does that got to do with Travel Channel?
I know, it's bizarre. There's actually 4 UFO shows up there. 2 of them I'm in. One's called UFO, The Untold Truth, and the other one is UFOs. I think it's UFOs The Sacred Site or something like that. There's so many of them, but I was like, wow, it's not only is it out, I started, my phone started blowing up. People started texting and calling. I see you on the Travel Channel talking about UFOs. I'm like, what? I thought it was never going to come out. I honestly did. But it came out, and it's very high quality. It's very, very crisp and good. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, sir.
I think
very,
so
very
that,
well done.
I think also that when it comes to the, you know, we've been screaming and we've been begging and we've been whatever else we have to get disclosure. Yeah, there will be disclosure, but we probably will get somewhere around 3% of the whole story, because all they want to give us just a little bit to keep us happy. They don't want to tell us the big story about what's on the planets and who's out there and what their connections are. We're not going to get much of that, I don't think.
No, I think the biggest thing that we're going to hear, and mark my word on this, there's another rover headed to Mars, and I believe that between 2020 and 2025, within that range, within that 5-year range, we're going to get disclosure of alien life, and that alien life is going to be bacteria. So they're going to tell us that bacteria exist on Mars, and they're going to call that the aliens. So alien life is.
Didn't Bill Clinton come out with something during his presidency? He made an announcement about that they had found like these larval-like worms in fossilized remains.
But then it was discredited later by NASA.
Oh, it was, okay.
Yeah, but even though I believe that they're real, but then NASA came back and tried to discredit it. And Bill Clinton really did. I mean, I don't like the guy that much, but he really was an advocate for trying to find information out about space and get some truths at least exposed, but he had no luck. But we know that the life forms are already there, and I believe it's more sophisticated life than just larvae and worms and bacteria. I believe that there's actual people up there. But we're going to get bacteria probably within the next 5 years. We'll get bacteria, and that'll be the official first time we ever hear that aliens are alive. And that
I've heard in a lot of these ufology shows, they talk about panspermia, where these asteroids are bringing bacterial life to us, that it may never have just been this ongoing evolution, but it may have been spiked from space. So maybe the whole universe has this going on, and the bipedal creatures that become intelligent, that's a fact of life. It's a fact of the universe, of cosmos. So, and I guess the question that kind of hits me is, people say, well, you know, is humanity ready to know about it? And some of the things that have gone on in the past couple of years, I'm saying to myself, maybe the bulk of humanity is really not ready. I don't know. You know? Yeah,
I don't know. It's still a question mark. Some days I feel really excited about it, and some days when I see some of the stuff that goes on, I go, man, I don't know. You know, but you know, I really would like some form of disclosure. One of the big things that I'd like to do, I'd like to be able to do a partnership with my space agency and the Indian Space Agency to help bring them technology and work with their technology partners and their programmers. They have some of the greatest programs in the world, to do a rover to Mars, our own private rover, and not only take pictures of the Earth on its ascension up into space, so we can show these people what the Earth looks like from a private camera, but also I would like to be able to land on Mars and send back our own data, our own mission data. It'll be a big undertaking, probably going to be a lot more than 3 million, but I think we can get it done within the next 10 years, and send back some data that will shock and blow the world if we're able to get it to transmit successfully. That's a whole other thing.
Well, the technology we have, really, what they won't tell us, people are starting to find out on their own. There's a Russian guy that discovered some principles of anti-gravity using a Tesla coil and a couple of rotating platters. And so I think this disclosure is actually part of it, is what we're going to be able to do on our own, off-the-shelf components, these little tiny micro satellites, this kind of stuff. Yeah, send your own rover to the moon, send your own orbiter to the moon, send your own. There's companies that are going to be allowing piggyback missions on their craft, so you could design in your own garage, you could design your own satellite, and if you can afford, you know, it actually will, I think, become quite affordable. Let's just say it costs you $100,000 to put your own satellite on there. That's well within the reach of a small LLC or a small startup, you know, to put your own satellite, get your own footage. Yeah.
Absolutely. One of the things that we're developing at First Class Space Agency is we're developing alternative propulsion systems. So we're looking into ways of getting different types of propulsion, and also not just propulsion, but also reduction of weight, so payload weight. So we're looking right now, we're doing research on what you can attach to a standard rocket that's already taking off with rocket liquid propellant fuel that will reduce the weight of the payload inside the rocket, so that once you reduce the weight of the payload, your profit margin as the space agency increases. So we're looking at those different types of technologies as well. And also looking into perpetual motion devices running off of magnetism, reverse magnetic fields, hydrogen generators that use electrolysis process to extract hydrogen atoms and move them into combustion, and the only emission is going to be steam, and also into zero-point energy devices that can collect energy from the ambient electromagnetic waves that are already around us, trillions of them all around us in this right now, talking. And there's a special photocell we're working on developing that can collect those waves, those dark waves, and convert them into power. So this is all the different types of technologies that we're working on right now.
That's awesome, Billy. Well, it looks
Well,
like
you know, there are all kinds of patents out there for you know, different types of free energy devices, and I have designed one. I've been trying to give away to people, and nobody seems to want it. So if you want it, I'll give it to you. And I had that tested by a scientist in Omaha, and he said, "Yeah, that thing will work." So.
Wow. We need to work together. I'm glad we connected. You got to plug in right away.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I think people take for granted. I think what it's coming back to is coils, magnets, and things of this nature. It's getting back to coils and magnets. I think that's really where we're going back to. It's electromagnetic. Science is like they're figuring out the inefficiency of most of the motors in use on this planet are purposefully inefficient.
Yep, that's right.
So
that's where it's at. You're right. We're going to go back to that because that's what the ancients used. They used magnetism. They used the magnetic polarities. They used electricity in different ways that we used it before, that we're using it now. And I believe they were even able to harness lightning. They harnessed physiostatic electricity from aquifers. They literally harnessed the planet. We've got to go from a type 0 civilization to a type 1 civilization. We've got to harness and work in symbiotic relationship with the planet. And if we do that, we can have 20 billion people on this planet, and we won't even feel it. But the way we're going right now, we're destroying everything.
It's really just sad. Yeah, that's true. We have the technology. We just don't have the will. We can feed, clothe, and shelter every human on this planet. All this nonsense I'm hearing in the news about not being able to take care of people, that we can't do it.
Yeah.
I know that we have the capability. Do we have the willpower is the big key.
That's the key, the willpower. You see, we have 7.5 billion people on this planet, and we only have 13 families, which equates to about 120 people or so running and controlling 7.5 billion. That's got to come to an end. And what I was saying earlier today to some people was that the suppression, the oppression, the slavery, the mental enslavement, the financial enslavement, the systematic torture and everything else that we've been put through on this planet is our fault. Our being the masses, 7.5 billion. Why? Because we've allowed it. We've sat back and allowed these things to happen to us because why? We don't want to come together and unify. We don't want to become one. We don't want to become brother and brother, sister and sister, a family again. We want you over there and I'm over here and you're this race and I'm that race and I'm better than you. No, you're better than me and all this other kind of crazy stuff instead of joining forces. And all we have to do is join forces and do one thing and we'll end this whole system in one day. Say no. No, I'm not going to work. No, I'm not paying taxes. No, I'm not going to buy gas. No, I'm not going to, I don't put my money in your central bank. I'm taking all my money out. I'm cashing in all my investments. No, I'm not going to get on the bus. No, I'm not getting in my car. No, we're done. If everybody did that on the same day, there is no system. It collapses in one day. But see, and there's no war, there's no picketing, there's no rioting, there's nobody to kill. It's just, we shut everybody down. We shut down your 100 families with one word, no, and action behind it. And, but we have to get enough conscious people on this planet to realize that's the only way it's going to work. And we need enough conscious souls collectively to be able to come into unison and do it. And one day that will happen. And this whole system will be overthrown and a new system will be put in place where your rank in society will be based on how good you are at what you do and how you help others versus a capitalistic system. Yeah.
Right. The Law of One talks about this period that we're in right now as a form of catalyst to get people sick and tired of it, to wake them up. So a lot of these problems are catalyst for change that are waking people up. They're saying, okay, wait, I can't just have the status quo anymore. The status quo is eroding daily. So
people have thrown logic out the window because here we go again. See, we go back to religion. Look at Islam and Christianity. In parts of the world where they have 15 kids in a family, and they can't even feed two if they're lucky with it.
I know.
Where's that going to go?
Yeah, it's
You
wild.
can't continue like that.
Yeah. I went to Egypt, and I was there for 2 weeks the last time, and I had a private driver and a private security guard. I gave each one of them a $100 bill as a tip for the 2 weeks. They literally cried. They cried. The guy who was the driver says, "You just fed my family for the next 2-3 months." I'm like, "What? On a $100 bill? That's crazy."
Well, but they don't make but pennies. It's awful.
Yeah.
It's true slavery, the way a lot of people are living. And people wonder why people are coming north from Latin America. They've got awful conditions down there. But anyway, we didn't want to get into that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. But well, Billy, thank you for coming on with us today. Is there anything else you wanted to share? And before we wrap it up,
you definitely need to share your website and how people can get a hold of your materials and information.
Absolutely. Please get the book Compendium of the Emerald Tablets. It is doing phenomenal. It's got some great reviews. It's a 5-star review on Amazon.com. If you want the autographed copy, go to forbiddenknowledge.com with the number 4, forbiddenknowledge.com. Also, you can follow me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, all social media accounts at Forbidden Knowledge. The new shows that I'm on right now are on Travel Channel. Just look for UFOs and type in UFOs Billy Carson. It should pop right up. Travel Channel, once a week, all new episodes with some amazing other cast and hosts in there as well. And I'm right now filming my own series on Damon Dash's network. He was a huge entertainment mogul and still is. Very astute entrepreneur and businessman. Has his own network like Netflix. And I'm filming shows there called Forbidden Knowledge with Billy Carson, as well as we're now doing a movie. So we're doing a movie which he's funding called Chronicles of the Anunnaki. It's a box office level movie, and it's in the beginning process of the scripts and everything else being written. The movie treatment's been done. We got the writers involved and the artists involved and everything else. And
that's great.
Box office level new movie coming by 2021.
That's awesome, Billy.
Thank you.
Awesome. I got nothing else that I want to ask. I mean, Nori or Aage, do you guys have any more questions for Billy? And I think
I got one thing I want to mention, and that is, I mentioned that free energy device. I'm using free for the term of it, but it is based on kind of like a permanent magnet motor, but you don't have to feed it energy for it to run. It'll run forever until it quits. And if you want me to, I'll send you the design on it.
Okay.
But I need an email because it's rather.
No problem. I'll get you that immediately.
Yeah, maybe you can get that email to me through channels.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll get that.
Okay.
Very good. Oh, he's typing it in right now. Very good.
Yeah, there you go. All right, fantastic. I'm looking forward to working with you on that.
Yeah, this would be great. I've got some stuff too that I want to share with you as well.
Please.
So this has been great. We appreciate everybody showing up to listen today. It was kind of an unusual day for us to broadcast. We normally do Wednesdays, but this is a great evening for doing what we're doing. 50th anniversary of Apollo 11. I was almost 10. I was going to be 10 in the following September. It was July, so I was almost 10, and I can still remember sitting there. It was really, and I remember going to the gas station, and they gave out these, not really total cardboard, but it was like you could take this thing apart like paper dolls, and you could literally fold out of paper a lunar module at the from the Shell station. I remember everybody was all in on the moon landing back then.
Yeah.
And I'm sure if you remember that as well. So this is a very cool day. I was actually impressed that the media really picked up on it and showed a lot of the historical stuff. And NASA, I think, in a response to a lot of the conspiracy theorists, has started releasing higher res images.
Yeah.
I don't know if they've been doctored or not, but they have been releasing higher res images of the moon the astronauts took. So that's out there too. So,
yeah.
Well, we got to get you back on again, Billy. We got to get you back on. This has been great. Once a year is not enough, but I know you're a busy guy. You're a busy guy. You're constantly in motion. So we really do. I was just like, wow, glad we got you on board. So
no problem, man. Thank you. I appreciate the effort.
Keep moving out there and keep writing about it and do radio shows and TV shows because we love to see it.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks so much, guys. I appreciate y'all.
Yep.
You want to hang around for just a second? I'm going to hit the music and we're going to say goodbye.